Okay, so today what we are talking about is saving space. And what that involves is really just different ways throughout Pipeline that you can manipulate it so that you save space, don't show information you don't need, reduce clutter, and really just collapse or, again, save space when you don't need to take it up. Okay? And we'll go through the different ways of doing that. I want to sort of categorize them into two separate sections, actually three, but I'll call them two for now. One is settings that you perform that the system automatically remembers, right? So you set it, and then the system knows that you want it that way, and it keeps it that way going forward. So you really don't even have to think about it. It just happens. And then the second way is things that you can do that the system will sort of refresh each time you get to that, and that's intentional as well. Okay, so let's start first by those types of things that you can do that the system remembers. Just refresh this page here. When I'm looking, for example, at my transactions list or any page throughout here, I could want some more space to be made for the main part of the page. Say, for example, I've got this really long transaction name here that's not showing, and I want to be able to see that. I can collapse this left menu here. Whatever's on the left menu, I can collapse it by hovering over the title of the page, in this case, transactions, and then clicking the arrow to collapse it. And instead of showing the names of the menu items, it'll show the icons. So if you're kind of a more visual person and like the icons, and again, want that extra space, and you can see here now that I've collapsed it, I can see more information within each of the fields, I could do that. And that will persist throughout the different tabs here, the different pages. So you see I've got icons here. Some people are more visual. Again, the icons are fine. Some people like the words, which I actually prefer the words, so I'm going to expand that back out. But you've got that option to save that space and collapse those into icons. Okay? So that's the first area. The second one is, let me head over to transactions here, and that's this search area. So if searching transactions, doing an advanced search here is something that you do often, maybe I want to view all of my listed transactions that have an incomplete checklist, right? I can search that, whatever searches I'm doing. So I do searches regularly. I might want this to stay expanded. So once I expand this, the system remembers, and next time I come to that page, let me refresh that page, it's still expanded, right? If I collapse it and then return to the page, it remembers that I want it collapsed. Okay, so nice, intuitive. You don't have to remember to keep it open. If it's something you do regularly, it will automatically stay open for you. Okay. Also, let me head over to a transaction here. When you're looking at your contacts, and on this particular transaction, I've only got 3, but typically there will be a lot of contacts on each transaction, and you may not need to see those unless you're actually looking for them. So you can actually collapse. Wherever you see pluses or minuses here, you can collapse or expand sections, whether you're within a transaction or editing a transaction, viewing a transaction on other pages. Wherever you see that, you can collapse or expand. So if I wanted to view the contacts now, I can expand that and then view them. But when it's collapsed, I can more easily get to the bottom information here, whether it's looking at the documents or sending a note or message or whatever. Okay? Also, if I'm on a transaction that has, let me find a transaction that's got commission information. So a CDA has been issued. Let me head over to this one here. I can also collapse and expand this financial information, right? So I probably only need to see that in certain scenarios, so I can keep that expanded. Again, the system will remember each time I come back to a transaction that I want this collapsed, and I can expand it if I need to. Okay? Also, let me go over to the transactions list again. And these left menu segments here, whether it's recently updated, recent lookups, etc., can be collapsed and expanded. So if it's helpful to have these expanded because I regularly look at relook up things that I've recently updated or recently searched or recently viewed, I can keep those expanded. But if that's something I rarely do or would like to just reduce the clutter, I can actually collapse those. And again, the system will remember that. Okay? Also, over here on the reference page, you'll notice that you've got collapsible sections here. So when you're setting up your docs and your forms on this page, you can be mindful of that so that you can segment your docs into the different sections. That way, one, obviously it makes it easier for people to find the docs they're looking for, but also it allows them to collapse or expand as needed. So if they need to see docs only within a particular section, they can expand that and find it more easily. Okay. And now I want to move on to those areas that you can manipulate that are not remembered by the system. So let me head back over to a transaction here. And so here, and the main area that falls into that category is checklists. So I can't, well, let me back up. By default, if a checklist is completed, when I land on this transaction page, it'll automatically be collapsed. Okay, so reducing that noise, it doesn't need to be looked at because it's already done, so it'll collapse it so that I don't even need to worry about that one. But if there are checklists that do have tasks that still need to be done, those will be displayed here, and I can collapse them if I need to. Maybe I'm working on this last checklist here, and I want to collapse these, right? Because I want to more easily see that bottom one. Or not related to collapsing checklists, but being able to just manage them best, I can also just drag this to the top if I wanted to. Okay, so you've got that ability. But again, you've got the ability to collapse these as well. Now, as admins, you've also got, or the master admin on the account has the ability to set the account to hide completed tasks when someone lands on this page. So there are actually some tasks that are on this list that are completed. But if you, in your global settings, set the account to hide completed tasks, those will be suppressed, just like you saw there by default. Okay, so let me reload that page so you can see what that looks like again. And we encourage that because we encourage setting that global setting to hide those completed tasks because, again, that reduces clutter for people who are looking at the checklists, and those typically don't need to be seen if they're already done, but they can expand it and see them if they need to. Okay. So that's it for the features that Pipeline remembers and doesn't remember, things that you can manipulate within Pipeline. And there are a few other things that you can do that are browser related or actually all browser related that can help, again, just save space. The first is to shrink your window. A lot of people don't realize that Pipeline is designed to display properly no matter your window size. So if I shrink this window here, either minimize it or just shrink it and then manually shrink it, the system responds to display the information appropriately no matter the screen width. So if I wanted to, let's say, maybe have two windows open, them side by side, because maybe I'm working on a transactions list here, and then maybe opening them into separate windows side by side, or maybe a lot of times people will have one window open for the unreviewed list and then review it in another window. And if that's something you need to do, by the way, please check out our help article, and that's one way of being able to, it shows one way of being able to have your windows side by side and be able to manage that well. But again, minimizing your windows, super helpful for either just reducing the space, working side by side, etc. And like I mentioned, the system's designed to work properly no matter the width of your window, and actually it's even if you go down to, let's say, a mobile device size, okay, notice as I get more narrow, it does, it collapses the page and displays it so that it's appropriate for a narrow window or a mobile device. So the menus get stacked here instead of having them over on the left like it does when the window is wider, okay? So just very responsive there. And also, if you need to work from your mobile device, it's perfectly fine. It'll adapt and do what you, or display it how it needs to so that you can get your work done efficiently there that way as well, okay? And then the last thing I wanted to show you is that when you're in your browser window here, typically, certainly for most of our customers, they'll have Pipeline open all day. And if that's the case, pinning the Pipeline tab can be super helpful. And the way that you pin a tab is to right-click on the tab and say Pin Tab. And what that will do is shrink it, saving you space, but also pinning it so that it doesn't accidentally get closed. You can still unpin it and then close it if you want to, but here, just like here where you've got a close option, here you don't. So it just kind of makes it a little more secure and keeps it there pinned to the left and small. Okay? And that's all I've got for saving space.